Good time again. Welcome back, everybody, to part two of Connecticut Newsmakers. And again, meet the candidates with John Mertens, our guest on this segment of the program. John is running for the United States Senate, Connecticut for Lieberman Party. John, thank you so much for coming in and being with us on our program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Nice to have you here. You were a candidate also on the Republican side, right?
Incorrect. No, that's not right.
Okay.
No, I've actually been very involved with the Independent Party.
Okay.
For the last 4 years. We've also taken over the Connecticut for Lieberman Party.
Yeah.
So we're using that ballot line as a forum to talk about issues.
Okay. What would say your independent party connection in the past, the Connecticut for Lieberman Party?
Yeah.
How do you differentiate yourself between the two so-called major parties?
Well, I think the two parties are responsible for most of our problems. I mean, the system is really broken. Mark Shields, a commentator, recently said that the average Republican senator could pass the average Democratic senator on the street and they wouldn't even recognize each other. I mean, there's that little conversation going on across the aisles. And there's a lot of really smart people out there who have figured out solutions to our problems. And you don't hear the Republicans or the Democrats even talking about the problems, let alone the solutions that people have figured out we should be doing. So we really need leadership and inspiration to repair our democracy. And this is a long-term plan. I'm not going to go away after November. This is a 10-year plan to build a major third party, the Independent Party in Connecticut, to repair our democracy and give people a voice in the process and involve people rather than turning them off with the negative campaign commercials and the vitriol that you're seeing between the two major parties. I mean, the system is broken, and we're going to have to go outside the system to fix it.
You're a professor of engineering at Trinity College.
That's
you're
correct.
a dad. You got four kids that you're taking care of.
That's
and
right.
then you're on the campaign trail, of course, so you're spending a lot of time out there. When you say Connecticut for Lieberman, how did you happen to decide that would be the way to go?
Well, that's kind of a long story. In 2006, I was the Independent Party candidate for U.S. Senate. But the Secretary of State's office denied us a petition to collect signatures to get on the ballot. It was awful. And we actually ended up defeating them on that issue, and now the Independent Party is a statewide party. Warren Mosler is the candidate for U.S. Senate. He's on next for the Independent Party. In 2007, I learned of a group that had taken over the Connecticut for Lieberman Party, people who turned it into an anti-war party, and I contacted them, and I said, look, they've denied us access to the ballot. You need to take this party seriously because it has a ballot line. Let's turn it into a real party with party rules, a method for nominating candidates for office. So that's how I got involved. If the Secretary of State's office had given us a petition in 2006, I would not have ended up getting involved with the Connecticut for Lieberman Party. But I'm glad I did. I think it helped us in our battle with the Secretary of State's office. It's given us an additional ballot line and an additional voice in the race this year.
Do you have this with the blessing of Senator Lieberman?
Not at all.
Not at all. Yeah.
Not at all. In fact, some people may remember an ad that we ran in December. We saturated the state for 3 or 4 days, starring me as the chairman of the Connecticut for Lieberman Party, criticizing Joe Lieberman. So, but that's not really the issue here.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
no, but I think people want to know a little bit. When you say Connecticut for Lieberman, that's a natural thing to say. What's going on?
It can be confusing.
Let's talk about some of the big issues here. Let's talk about the economy of this country, the job situation. What would you do to try to rectify that?
Well, I have 4 specific things that I think we should do. Number 1, our unemployment rate is really about 17%. I mean, it's a disaster. They say it's 9 to 10%, but if you count people who are working part-time, who can't find part-time work, and people who've given up looking and have fallen off the rolls, it's really about 17%. This is our biggest problem. And in the short term, the way you increase jobs is through tax cuts to people who will spend the money. Spending creates jobs. So Warren Mosler will talk about this as well. He's next. A payroll tax holiday would put a lot of money into the pockets of working people who could pay their mortgages, spend the money, stimulate the economy, and it would also help small businesses because employers are required to write a check to the government equal to the amount of money that's taken out of your paycheck. And this is the most regressive tax that we have. It's only taken out of the first $107,000 that you earn. All the money you make above $107,000 you don't pay into the 6% Social Security tax. So I have a plan on my website to stimulate the economy through payroll tax holiday for middle-class people. I also have a program to increase investment in startup and young companies, where we would allow people to defer paying income tax, federal income tax, on their revenue if they invest it in startup companies. There's still a lot of people out there making a lot of money, but they're afraid to invest right now because they're worried about the economy. So this reduces their risk if they invest. They get to defer the income tax they would have to pay. I also think we need to greatly simplify our tax code. Small businesses, on average, pay someone 56 hours to do their tax forms. And that doesn't include the bookkeeping time that they have to do. We need to do away with the AMT, we need to do away with the marriage penalty, and we need to simplify our tax code. That would stimulate business. You know, I have other ideas, and also we need to protect our economy in the long term. You know, I'm worried about a future mortgage crisis. The current bank regulatory bill passed with the leadership of Chris Dodd, even the proponents say that this will not prevent future mortgage crises. One thing we should do is we should require banks to maintain ownership of every loan they give for the lifetime of their loan. What they did in this mortgage crisis is they had coercive lending, where they sold mortgages to people that couldn't afford it, and then they bundled them together and sold them and washed their hands of them. So they had no risk, they had no ownership of the loans. If they were required to maintain ownership of their mortgages, they would pay more attention. So in terms of economic issues, those are some of the issues that I propose. Specific legislation that I would fight for. You're not hearing these things from Blumenthal or McMahon. They speak in these vague general terms. It's all rhetoric.
Time running by quickly, John. Final point. When you talk about foreign policy now and where we are and what we're doing in terms of the military situation, what do you think should be done in that area?
I opposed President Obama's plan to increase our troop levels in Afghanistan to 100,000. I don't think it serves our national interest there, which is to prevent Al-Qaeda from a resurgence where they could develop training camps to train terrorists to attack us at home, which is what happened with 9/11. We could do that with much fewer troops, and we should also help their economy. This might sound controversial, but it's not. We should buy every poppy plant that they grow in Afghanistan. We have uses for them here, medical uses for it here. It funds the Taliban. The poppy industry and the heroin industry in Afghanistan funds the Taliban. Why don't we buy all the poppy plants from them instead of letting the Taliban
and put it to good use over
there? Put it to good use here. And I want to say I have 30 detailed position statements on my website, Mertens2010.com. So this is just a few.
Mertens, M-E-R-T-E-N-S, 2010.com. Got to run. Got to get Warren on the program. Appreciate it, and talk to you soon for sure.
Thank you, Tom.
John Mertens, party entitled Candidate for Lieberman. Back with more in a moment.